Hello.
Hi.
Started. So last time, as one of our supervisors, Gihemi from Japan, um, he started an introduction to Node.js, and can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. And this is actually because we believe everyone here has the basics on HTML, CSS, and a surely growing in JavaScript. So we just had to start with backend. Um, so Guilherme started uh, a session on introduction to Node.js, where last time he introduced NVM, NPM, and built a simple Node.js and Express server, just a basic with one route. I think that was one or two. So today we are going to continue from there. Um, so this the video was put on our channel, uploaded. So I hope everyone checked it out. Here's a video. So I encourage everyone to check it out, watch, and ask any questions. And I equally sent, there are still some other video resources on this channel that has to do with introduction to HTML, Node.js. I don't know why I keep saying HTML. To Node.js and backend. Here's a video on backend, and here's a video on building a basic Express.js server. Um, so let me kind of give a brief explanation um, on last time's class. So I know most of you might be wondering what exactly back-end development is all about. Um, Putting into consideration that some might have background knowledge on these, some might not. So in web development, we have, or generally in software development, permit me put it that way, we have front end and we have back end. So front end actually refers to um, the interface, what the user sees, and back end actually refers to the logic, what actually happens behind all the server, perhaps architecture, databases, and all of that. And so you might be wondering, why would you have to do it to do it back end? Meanwhile, you could build a site with HTML and CSS and JavaScript. Well, you need back end because your site might want to interact with the database. Your site might want to read and write from the database. As you see this, as you can see this image on my screen, we have clients. It could be a laptop, it could be a mobile device, and so through the internet, it's able to access the server. So the client makes a request. I think this image portrays that better. Yeah, the client makes a request, and the server provides a response. So there are instances in um, during operation, of a web app, web or mobile app, when this is actually required, a client response, a client request, and server response. So that is why backend is very important. And to implement backend in your application or like a website, you need a backend technology. So that's why we are using Node.js, and we are going to use a database, MongoDB database. Yes. Um, so last time, our supervisor or the trainer started an introduction to this, and he showed us how we can build web page, right? A web page using a basic server using Node.js and Express, or let's just say Express. and the server had just one route or two, so if I'm not mistaken, where you could access that using Postman, but that could also be accessed using a web browser, something like localhost 3000, which grants you access to the page. So what actually happens when you hit localhost 3000 on your browser is your browser is like this the client, and the, the server which you have developed, that express server, is actually what gives the response. So if you noticed, he actually set up a route. Let me use this as an example. If you noticed, he set up a route like this, or should I say, okay, last time he used the router module, but this is basically the same thing. So he set up a route with get, I mean app.get, referring to this response. It therefore means that our browser, if our browser opens this path, or perhaps let's say, let's assume we have here slash home. If our browser accesses slash home, we are going to the server is going to respond with hello, welcome home. So that's actually what happens. I was just trying to make us understand what happened in the last session. So similarly with other websites, let's say, so a website might need to request data from the server. It may not necessarily be text. It could be something else, video and image. For instance, we have Wikipedia, and you would notice different routes. Notice the link here. This is a route. In our case, we had to deal with localhost because we are on local development machine, local server. Permit me put it that way. But in the production, you'd have a domain name, like we have wikipedia.com and all of that. So brief. If there's any question, you can raise your hand and let us know. So today we are going to this. Sorry for this code, but I think I'm just going to copy and paste this somewhere so I don't have to write it again. Um, let's see. Hopefully, or perhaps we can just comment the code out. Yeah, I think we just comment this. I think it is control slash. Okay, so we have this commented out. We are going to get back to this as we code along. So last time we had something this simple. Mm, Okay, so last time we had something similar to this, but the only difference is Giheme actually used the express router, which is the same. So I would let me show you the other approach on how to build a route, right? So this is our basic Express.js setup where we have included the Express module, an instance of the Express module, and then this is our first route app.get. So how do we create a route? It's basically simple. um, we have what they call HTTP methods, and we have the get, the put, the post, the delete. So when we do a get, it simply means that if a browser accesses this path, for example, let's say wikipedia.com/home, or on local development setup we have um, let's say localhost 3000/home. It means our server is going to respond with this response.send hello welcome home. So that is what was done last class. But there is another approach, which is simply by doing app.get, and in between that we have the name of the route, and we have a function that provides the response, right? Um, yes, even though um, conventionally, it is advisable to separate your model, your view, and your controller. So there is this architecture called the model view controller, MVC. I believe I think you can check it out, later some other time. Model view controller, where an application is separated into three, parts. We have the model, the view, and the controller. So we are going to talk about some other time. But generally, it is advisable to separate that. That is why Gihemi actually had to create a route file separate from um, the main code, from the main file. Any questions so far? I'm just doing some kind of recap. Any questions? You can drop in the comment box. Any questions? Okay, none. Then we continue. Okay. So let's create another. So let's check out the output of this. Um, so last time you equally noticed how Mr. Guillaume set up a JSON package.json file. So the package.json file is a file that keeps track of your modules and yes, let's say modules, their dependencies, and some scripts, commands. Let's put it that way. So I know most of you might actually be new to Node.js, and Node.js has what they call should I say npm? Yes, to manage packages. Node.js has a vast ecosystem of packages and modules. I don't really know much about PHP, but many things in Node.js can be done using modules. Perhaps in PHP you would need to have a vast ecosystem of modules. So to start our server with in Node.js, we use a command, and that is what has been set here: start nodemon index.js. This is another module you're learning about. Last time he used node index.js, right? But you notice that whenever you use node index.js to start your server, if any change is made on your code, for example, we want to add a new route. If we add a new route, we would need to still come back and do and restart the server. But whenever we use a package such as nodemon, um, Nodemon automatically starts the server whenever any changes are made on the code. So as you can see, this is nodemon server listening on 3000. Nodemon is watching and waiting for any changes to restart. So you can equally automatically restart with the command rs. It automatically restarts nodemon, the server. Um, You might be wondering why I used npm start rather than node index.js, because I configured that here, start nodemon index.js. So rather than typing nodemon index.js or node index.js, if I hit npm start, it runs this command. Okay, so with this running, let's move on to browser. So if we open localhost 3000, cannot get, let's check out. Okay, so this is a route slash home. So we just opened a slash, so that's why it gives you the error cannot get this route. So if we move on to slash home, we have hello, welcome home. So we can then create another route. Let's say app get, um perhaps let's say the about page, and then we do a request, we write a function, and this function takes a request dot response, a request and response, and we can respond with, the server can then respond with, let's say this is the about page. So you'd notice our server has automatically restarted, and if we move on to our browser, we're going to have, we move on to the about route, we're going to have, this is the about page. So that's how you can set up a route with a get method. Remember, this get method simply refers to when a browser makes a get request. A get request means it is fetching for out for resources or a resource from the server. So this is our server which we are just developing with Express JS. So this can equally be tested with Postman. Backend developers usually use Postman to test this, not necessarily with a web page as such. Um, so permit me introduce you to EJS. EJS. So if we get on to EJS, okay. So npm JS is that ecosystem, or that um, place where you can find node modules. And this is so amazing because it facilitates work. We have hundreds of node modules here. So node modules could simply refer to, should we say, libraries in quotes, though I may not be actually correct contextually, but let's just say modules that facilitate in doing task. Um, for example, we used nodemon, and before using nodemon must be installed. So you must so you notice when developing with node.js that any module you use, you're going to install it first, except it is a built-in modules. So modules are built in, meaning that it normally comes with node.js, and express.js itself is not a built-in module. um let's come back to nodemon. Yes, so let's, this is nodemon. You realize before using nodemon you must install nodemon, and this is a command, npm I nodemon, or simply npm install nodemon. Even express.js itself, which Guillermo used last time to start the server, to build the server, it's not a built-in module, so he installed using npmi express. So similarly, If you would want to use any module in nodejs, you would first need to install that module, except it's a built-in module. And you must always master the command npm I node, npm I express, or npm install express, or npm install the name of the module. And npm js here has a fast, um, you know, has lots of modules, I assure you, and it equally documents how you can install that module. So permit me introduce you to a module called EJS, and EJS stands for Embedded JavaScript. Um, you might actually be wondering, why would you want to use EJS? Well, EJS helps you to serve or render web pages. Yes, helps you to render web pages, and equally has a possibility to get variables from the server and inject them into the web page. Let me give you an example. Those of you who use Facebook, do you think that, or let's say LinkedIn, how LinkedIn developed its server, or how its server code looks like? Do you think whenever someone logs in, or do you think LinkedIn actually, there's someone seated in front of a computer that writes the name of each new user on the web page? No, it was automatically programmed in such a way that whenever someone logs in, that data from the server is directly injected, or put on the home page of that user with the user's name. Therefore, the name is gotten from the database or server and then placed on the person's account. Who else? Do you think LinkedIn has a machine that actually types out that name for every user? That would be actually difficult and, in fact, impossible. So this is where AJS plays a role, right? Let's look at an example. Let's look at an example. So you would want to install EJS with the command npm I EJS. So you would want to install it on your command line. When that's done, you're going to find it on your in your package.json file. You're going to have it listed under the dependencies. So these are your modules. So far I have Mongoose installed, I have Express.js installed, I have EJS installed, right? And whenever you install a module, before using that module, you must require that module. You must actually import it in your code, right? So I have EJS installed. So let's make use of it. And to make use of that, since EJS is a view engine, we must, permit me just copy this to save time. Um, we must set the view engine to EJS, and at the level of the home, rather than using response.send, with EJS we use response.render, and this takes the name of the EJS file, let's say register, and this is found, and your EJS file must be served in must be placed in your view folder. Okay, let's say index dot, yeah, register, yeah, dot EJS. So register dot EJS, you could put it this way, but it still works this way. And in your register.ejs file, you have HTML code. But the only difference is it comes with the extension register, with the extension .ejs. Yeah. So the difference here at the level of the route is, rather than using response.send, we have response.render. So that's how EJS works. And just to equally make you understand that, apart from sending mere text as a response from the server, we can also send files. We can also send HTML documents, HTML files. So usually in real life, you wouldn't want to do this. You might want to see a good web page, right? Um, so you might want to send a file, respond with a file and not this. So I think at this point I'm going to um, hand over to Miss Janike. I know you were actually waiting for to see the output, but I'll leave that to you as an assignment. So you go and check it out at home. Check out EJS and serve um, an HTML file at the level of the response. So for an HTML file, you could simply do response or send file, and here we have here you can put the name of your file. That's okay. Um, so that's it. Any questions? Are there any questions?
I guess not.
Okay. All right. Sorry you wouldn't get an output today because before the class I was preparing something huge for our next class. I mean, after this, we are going to cover more on EJS, database, schema model. That's why you actually found me coding something out. Okay, so this was just to give you a kind of summary, some more explanations on what the tutor for the last session, taught. Um, and just to throw more light on that and give a brief summary on response, routes, EJS, embedded JavaScript, so you can go and check more on that. So we are going to move on to the next part of this, where we're going to have Miss Janike. She's going to tell us about Git and GitHub. Remember, we are trying to make everyone, build professionalism in everyone. So we are trying to set a standard that you can, flow along with, be it in your country or out of your country. I mean, a global standard. So we've gone past the level of saving files on zip folders or sending them via Google Drive. So that's why we need Git and GitHub. So over to you, Miss Janet K, for more explanations on that.
All right, thanks. Um, First of all, I'll just I has everyone ever worked with Git, or is it a completely new concept for some people here? If I don't get an answer, I'll just assume that it's a very new concept. Yeah, something you have worked with it, I assume, hearing your response before. But yeah, okay, I'll just explain what Git is.
Something,
So
yeah, go ahead.
Git is a version control system. Um, nice, Martin. Which allows you to keep track of different versions of your code throughout time. So, how I see it is kind of like a time machine for your code. So, it allows you to sort of drop a point, um, and then you can always go back to that point, and the point we call commit. So if I dropped a point 2 weeks ago, since then I've completely messed up my code, Git allows me to go back to that code of 2 weeks back before I messed it up, and then continue from there again. So it's a really nice system to see how your code goes throughout the time. Um, so today I want to quickly go through the different usages of Git, I will drop a link in the chat, which is the official downloading site. So if you don't have Git yet, I can give you the time now to download it, or you can do it afterwards. I don't know, God will, what would be a better approach.
Yes. How many people are connected on PC now and would want to try it out along with her? You can indicate. Someone's hand is up. Martin, did you want to say something? Sandrine, you can unmute yourself and speak.
Yeah, always just speak through me, please. I thought
Okay. 3 persons are connected on PC, right? Is that so? The reason why your hands are lifted.
I am not
Okay.
sure.
Okay, then you can download. Anyways, as she's explaining, you can download Git and follow up.
Great. Because I already have Git downloaded, I'm not really gonna do it with you, but you can just go through the whole installation process. But maybe for now I'll just show you what it looks like when you have it. Sorry, Flavia, do you want to say something?
Please share your screen.
Yeah, I will. All right. Okay, can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay, so what I want to do now is with Git, you get something called Git Bash. And this allows you to use Git wherever. But to be honest, you can use Git in any kind of terminal too. So if you just put like Git before it, it doesn't matter what terminal you use. You can just use your like Windows PowerShell or whatever. I made a little folder for today's tutorial to be able to show you what's going on. So I will go to that folder by typing cd, which is like change directory, and I should be able to copy paste this, please. Great. Oh, okay. I'm gonna do it my way. Sorry, guys, but it should work like that. But I always do it like this. Just open it in a terminal. And then I'm already at that place, so that's great. So if I want to make this folder, which I want completely uploaded to Git, if I want to initiate it that it's a Git folder, I can type Git init, and as you can see, it now initializes an empty Git repository, and you can see this Git folder. If you cannot see this, that's not a problem, because it can be, sorry, everything is in Dutch, that it's actually hidden. This says hidden items, and for me that's just, it always shows the hidden items. But if you don't see it, that doesn't mean that it's not there. And then we can do git status, which is a very nice thing. And this says, well, you don't have a commit yet, which I said a commit is that point in time. Um, so if
Excuse me, Miss Janike.
yeah,
Somebody says she's lost. That's Favor. She has a Mac computer. So how do we do about that? So
oh,
tell us, Favor, where are you lost? At what level?
if you have a Mac computer, you
Like the
in the
terminal, because the same input might be different from ours.
right, I think for
Come again,
git
Favor.
at or Mac. Git commands. Let's see. I think you need to do like sudo maybe or something like that. Um, did you download it for the first time now? Mm-hmm. The easiest way is Xcode command line tools. Um, oh, it could be that you already have it because of Xcode. So if you do this git version in your terminal, do you have a terminal? Sorry, I don't hear
Yeah,
anything.
I do.
So if you put this in the terminal, see what it does,
Okay.
and let me know.
So does it mean some MacBooks already have Git installed?
I think maybe it might come with Xcode, but I've never had a Mac, so I'm not really sure.
Is Xcode a version of Git
No,
or how?
Xcode is like the Apple version of Visual Studio Code. It's like where you can, it's like a program where you can write your code.
Okay.
Okay, it's installing now.
Oh, nice, good, 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 good. Yeah, what is best to do? Shall I wait? Is anyone else also installing it right now?
Is anyone else equally installing? Those connected with PC. Or I guess some of you already have Git. Sandrine, I think you already have Git, right? Closev, I think you have Git.
I I try to install. I install GitHub, but since the last time I don't more have my identifier. I'm trying to install them.
You said you no longer have your credentials.
Hmm.
Okay. Mm, all right. Who else is doing the installation? Sandrine, Martin. I think Martin already has Git.
So I already have Git.
Nice.
Okay. Nice. So, Favor, is it okay?
Yes, sir. Still installing.
Okay.
And I think the Git software is kind of really heavy, 90 something meg.
Right. So maybe the best approach is to now just continue with this, and I will upload this anyway, so you can always come back to
Watch. If
yeah, to watch it later if that works. I will also share a nice video on GitHub later, which is really telling everything you need to know. Okay, then for now I'll continue. So what I was saying is that you have these commits and they are these points in time that allow you to go back to that point of time. So you kind of drop a pin and then you can always go back to that pin and what your code looked like back then. So what we want is to make a commit of all these files that I have in my little recipe folder. Um, and I will do that. If I do commit now, it says like it doesn't really work because nothing is added to the commit. So first of all, we want to add files. So we can do that by git add, and then for instance I can add just the one file of index.html. And if I now do git status again, it says, then there is a new file which can be committed, but the recipes file is not added to the commit. This is, for instance, useful when you have like files that you'd rather not have saved at that point of time. But right now we want to add them all, so we can do git add and then a dot, and that will make sure that they are all added. I'll go back to git status, and as you can see, they are now all added, including the files in the recipes folder. So now we can commit, and we do that by git commit, and then we can write a little message by writing -m, and then we can open brackets and we can say first commit. And now it has committed all these 4 files. All right. So what we can now do, for instance, to show that we can actually go back to this commit, is change something about this. And I will show you this really nice website that I made. It's my recipe website. I hope you like these recipes. And we can go to the pizza recipe, can go to the pasta recipe, but there is one problem you may have seen, because in the recipe folder there is also a brownies recipe, but right now that's not visible. So what I want to change, let's go to the index. Oops, I don't want to go to the index thing, but I want to go there in my class, in my text editor. Why is that? I will just quickly do it with this. Oh, it's opening on another screen. Alright, so what I can do here is make another one of these. So I will Control C, Control V this, and add this simply to my name. So it's brownies, I think, or brownies. Brownies.html, and then I will say it's a brownies recipe. And I will save this. And now I can, first of all, see that this is working. Open with, hello. So the brownies recipe is now added. But I can also see in here, if I now do git status, it says that the index.html has been modified, but it's not yet added to a commit because we've not added it yet. So now we can also add this new version of the index.html, and we can commit it as we did before. So I say add brownies to home page. Alright, and it says this one file is changed. And now I can do git log, and I can see all that I've done so far. So I can see that first I did this commit, and it's called this. Great. And then I also did a second commit where I added these brownies to the home page. I can now, if I want to, for instance, say this was one big mistake. I don't want these brownies on the home page at all. I could always go back to a previous commit by doing git reset, and then I can take this ID and do that. And then it will go back to that commit. I will not do that right now because I don't think... Well, actually, let me do that. Alright, I have now gone back, and I should now be able to restart this. not doing that. Oh, this didn't work. Unstaged changes. Okay, I'm not sure why that is. Sorry, guys. Find out. Wait, let me. Ooh. Right. This is modified and added. Okay, that's weird. I'm sorry. I'm not sure why this is not happening. Okay, anyway, move on. Another important thing about Git is that you can create branches, and this is especially useful when you want to work with multiple people on one code base. So you have this one project and you want to work with multiple people on there and you don't want to mess up each other's code. What you can do is you can take like your main branch and you can create another branch based on that first code. So for instance, I have this code here. And I want to, oh, now I closed it. I want to change something, but I don't want that immediately to be changed for everyone. What I can do is I can create a branch by saying git branch, and for instance, let me say that I want to change the pasta. What now happened is that I added a branch, but I'm still on the master branch. So I have a master branch and I have a change pasta branch. If I now want to go to the change pasta branch, I will say git checkout change pasta. And now if I say git branch, you can see that I'm on the change pasta branch because it's green and with these little asterisks before it. Alright, so let me now change something again. I wanted to change the pasta, so let's go to the pasta. I don't know if you saw it, but it's not the most healthy recipe ever. Let's say that I want to add some garlic and onion. I will say garlic and onion. And then we can change the instructions a little bit, saying cut the garlic and onion and fry it. And then add the pasta sauce. Okay, let's save that. And then we can take a look at git status again. Can you tell that I use that often? And we can see that this is again modified. So let's say that we want to add that again. We want to add everything and we commit and we say add garlic and onion to pasta recipe. All right. And now, let's see, we had those two branches. Let me see what is now happening on the main branch. So if I have the git branch, git checkout master, sorry. And I now close this everything. Maybe that's what messed it up before. And I now take a look at the pasta. Ah, you can see it's gone. Like my change that I just made is not there anymore. So that is not what we want because we made that change. It could be now that, for instance, a colleague of yours also made a change to these recipes and also has a different branch, and then he can merge his code into the main branch, and you can merge your code into the main branch, which in our case is that we added this garlic and onion to the pasta sauce. So what we want to do is we want to merge it. So first of all, it's important that you're on the branch from which you want to merge. So if I check out now, like if I see what I am, where I am, I'm indeed on the master branch and I want to merge our changes into the master branch. So I'm at the right branch. And then I can say git merge change pasta. And right now we're still in the same branch. I can take a look if I reopen this. That indeed now the garlic and onion has been added. Is there something? I hear someone. Any questions? I do love cooking, got well.
Okay, we want to find out, is it possible to commit without a message? Anyone has any question? You can drop in the in the chat box. Is it possible to commit without adding a message?
Yeah, you can simply do git commit and it will add a commit, but it's not recommendable. I would always recommend adding a message because it gives your fellow developers an idea of what happened there and what the changes are that you made. So it's really best practice to always add a message, but you can do it without if you want to.
Okay, another question. How does a merge actually work?
Oh,
Does it mean perhaps it's going to take the code of, let's say, perhaps the first branch, or let's say the sub branch,
mm-hmm.
and put them together? Please, could you perhaps explain better how the merge works?
So the idea of merge is that the new changes are added to the existing branch, like the main branch. So it will look at the differences. Actually, I can show this because it's quite interesting. I could, if I, for instance, go back to my change pasta branch, and I would let me just reopen this just to be sure. And I would remove this again. No, I will correct this mistake that I made. That is better. I can now also, if I'm correct, I can do git diff, and it will show me the differences between the two branches. So now you can see that this is like the change pasta branch and this is the master branch. So this shouldn't show. Oh, that's weird. So let's say that I say it's onions and I save that and then I check it out on the change pasta and then I open the pasta. I think my computer is really messing around. Oops. Okay, I cannot show this because it doesn't listen to me. I am on the change good branch. Let me check. Yeah, I am on the change pasta. Do you see what I'm trying to do, Godwill?
Yeah, yeah, I can see.
But it's not working. Let me see if I go back to master and I reopen it again and I remove all these S's again and I save this. It should only be saved to the master. So I then want to check out change pasta again. If this is still not working, I'm just gonna try and explain it without. Yeah, weird. Okay, it's taking my changes with it, so that's not really working well enough to show you guys. But the idea is that if you have like you make changes to the same spot on two branches, you have the same spot where you make the changes. So for instance, what I now did with the onions, if I then merge it, it's gonna display both the changes that you make, and then you have to make a choice. It says like cannot merge automatically, have to make a choice between which of these two versions you want to keep, and then so if it doesn't automatically understand how to merge itself, then you have, as a developer, has to choose. So yeah, that's how merging in general works. So it will try to do it for you, and if it cannot, for some reason, it will give you the option like to do it yourself.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I see another question. When do I
You have
create master
actually
branches?
demonstrated how that works. Does it equally include new files? Because for example, if doing a git merge, perhaps on the second on the sub branch we have new files.
Yeah,
So does a git merge actually include the files?
yeah. So that's really nice, but you do need to add them. So always make sure that you do git add and do all the files that you want to include, and then if you merge it, it should add the new files too. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, okay, wow. Then I think that's a very powerful technology.
Yeah, it
There's
definitely
another
is.
there is another question here
Yeah, I
by
see.
Martin, and this question is somehow related to a question I wanted to ask about how practical is this in the tech industry, perhaps in an enterprise.
Mm,
Um, how do we actually apply this? And that goes in line with the question Martin asked. Is it when implementing a new feature? Is it during collaboration? He talked about creating a master branch. Could you perhaps elaborate on that?
yeah. So Git in general is just used a lot. I would say that it's really useful in any situation. I also have sometimes projects that I work on myself, like just personal project or some like things that I only work on by myself that no one else needs. But still I prefer to keep it on GitHub because it's similar to Google Drive. If my laptop doesn't start, I still have those projects. So that's why it's really useful. It's all in the cloud. It's also useful for when you collaborate with other people, um, because it doesn't matter who makes which changes. You can, in a very structured way, make sure that you don't mess each other's code up. And for me personally, I just really like the reassurance that Git gives me that I can just head into my code, I can make all these changes, and if it doesn't work out, I can always go back to a previous commit. So I think those are the main things that I think Git are really useful for, is really useful for. And when it comes to master branches, you in general, the master branch is contains like in a real-time application. So something that is actually running, the master branch is the branch which contains the code that you see when you visit the actual website. So for instance, if let's say Facebook has also all the developers that work on Facebook also have a Git. They will there will be one master branch, and that will be the thing that you actually see when you visit Facebook. And then there's often a development branch, which is based on the master branch, and on the development branch, uh, changes will be made, but actually not directly. So from the development branch, people will per feature, if you want to create a new feature, you will branch off the development branch, and then as keep your own branch as long as it's needed. And as soon as you're done with your feature, you will push it to the development branch. And then when like the main person thinks this development branch is actually a lot better than what is currently on the website, they will make it into the master branch. But that's how it's done at like big corporations. I also does that answer your question, Martin? By the way, before I go on. All right, I'll assume it does. Otherwise, let me know. Um, I also want to go into GitHub a little bit. Um, because let me see. So we talked about Git and why Git is useful, and I say that it's very useful for collaborations. But actually, what I just showed you, Git is simply running locally, so it's only on my computer. So this is where GitHub comes into place, because this is why it's useful also to make sure you don't lose anything, and to be able to share your files with other people. And we on GitHub, everything is called a repository. So let's say we want to create a new repository, which is simply a place where all your, like a bit like a file system, as you can see it here. This whole thing, all these files will then go into the repository. So let's say I want to call this my recipes, because that's the theme. And then you can choose if you want to keep it public. For now, well, there's nothing really dangerous about sharing my recipes, so I'll keep it public. And there's also an option to add a git ignore. And a git ignore, you can put all the kind of files in the git ignore file that you don't want to upload to Git. So I would normally recommend really to do this, to add a git ignore, but right now I'm not going to do it. But definitely read into git ignore and what you need for, if you, for instance, have a Node.js application, you do want to add like the node modules into the git ignore, because you probably saw it, it's like a huge file, a huge folder. So yeah, it's really useful to use git ignore for that. Okay, and then here you get instructions on whether you want to create a new repository on the command line or push an existing repository from the command line. And I want to do the latter, this one, because, well, I already have my great recipe website, so I don't need a new folder. And I will then just do this. So I go to my thing, and I simply, let me just check that I'm on the right branch, by the way. I think it will, oh, what was that? Oh, I heard weird beeps. I want to make sure that I'm on the master branch. I think it will be fine, but just to be sure. Okay, and then I will remote add origin. All right, that worked. Then I will do git add if it's needed. Wait. Yeah, I will. And then git commit changed pasta. And what you can do now, which is really interesting, is I can push all the code that I have locally, so here, to GitHub. And I do this simply by saying git push. Oh. The current branch master has no upstream branch. Okay, so I want to do this because it says like this branch that you have locally doesn't necessarily have a branch on GitHub. Cool. Okay, so now if I reload this, look at that. I have my pasta and my brownies and everything. And the cool thing now is, I will just quickly take a look at what it's. So in the end, it's just without all the S's. All right, I will quickly make a change here to show one more feature, and then I think we're done. Normally, I wouldn't add it in GitHub, but right now it's easier because this sort of shows what would happen if one of your colleagues added something. So here I want to add and fry it until it's gold or something. Okay, I will commit these changes, and I will say right now that I committed directly to the master branch. You can also create a new branch for this, which is normally what I would recommend, but this is such a small thing. So I added to the master branch. It's changed here, and right now what I can do, because if I now look into the pasta recipe thing here, I will see that those changes that are made on GitHub are not added here. So if, for instance, my colleague made that change, I do want to have the changes at my local machine too, at least if I choose that for that. So what I can do is I can do git pull. And this will then mess up everything. I'm kidding. Here, it will add the changes that are made on GitHub. So I think that's for now kind of everything that's really important. I definitely recommend watching some tutorials on Git. Um, I will share one after this meeting because, for instance, it's also really useful to know about issues and pull requests, but it's just a bit much to discuss right now. So, oh, I will also. I see I have another question. What is the difference between a master and a main branch in GitHub? It really isn't. There isn't any difference. I think. I guess GitHub's default name is main, and my local computer's default name is master. So that's it doesn't really matter. I think normally I always work with a master and a development branch, but um, it doesn't really matter, honestly. Whatever you prefer. Any other questions? I will stop presenting for now. Can we see what? Oh, right, yeah, I was looking at that too. So that's interesting. I think in order to see the branches on GitHub, did I close this again? It's so weird how I do that automatically. We need to actually go to the branches locally and push them. I can look up if git push all local branches to remote. So this is also what I do when I have a question. I really recommend just always Googling it. Um, to push all your branches, place remote with the name of the remote. For example, origin. Okay, git push remote all. Let's try this. Is it with double dash? Yes. Oh, git push origin. I think that should do the trick. Right, so now my two new branches are also added. Let's reload this. Yep, there you go. These are my branches. Anything else?
Anything else? Any other question to those connected? Okay, if there are no questions, thank you very much, Miss Janike, for the explanations.
You're very
I
welcome. I hope it was useful.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. And this wasn't just a Git and GitHub class; it was equally a cooking class. So I think
Yes.
I've learned how to cook some pasta.
Don't try the
So
recipes. The
thank you
recipes
equally
have
for
all
that.
been made by ChatGPT, so I don't know if they're good.
Okay. Okay. So thank you equally for the recipe class. So I believe we have girls here and women they equally learned how to cook.
Very good. Very good.
Sandrine Favor and anyone if you would want to make Miss Janike very happy, I would recommend you add some style to her webpage. I think she'll be really
Yeah, you now know the link too, so you can find it and pull it and push
okay.
things.
Miss Janike, any assignments for us or any task to be done at home?
I think the main thing is to make write the code like what was last week's assignment, and if you haven't done it yet, add it to GitHub. So maybe do create like a nice master branch and a development branch, and then push your changes onto the development branch when you make them, and share it. Share your link with us. That'd be good. And make nice commits with good
Okay,
comments.
thank you. So, yeah. So I think everyone has that. So that is assignment by Miss Janike. So do well to get that done before our next class on Monday. Um, so during our next session with Miss Janike, I think there's a lot more to cover on GitHub about Git and GitHub. So I believe we are going to discuss. I'm going to talk with her later on. So she could come up next time. When she's less busy, so that we are going to learn more on this. I believe next class, Miss Janike is going to teach us how we can collaborate. So I believe in that session, we are all going to have our computers so that we can see how these enterprises work, how we can push to the master branch, merge, to see how collaboration actually works in real life. I guess that's really going to be helpful.
Definitely.
And I'm equally looking forward to create a repository for this API, for the coding class, for the API which we are going to develop. I'm going to create a repository for that so that as we code along, each and every student will have a branch where he or she pushes a code,
Yeah,
their
that's
code.
perfect.
Yes, so that it's going to so that we are going to put into practice all what we are learning about Git and GitHub. And this is actually really helpful. Git is equally really helpful, even though it works locally, because your device might actually get bad. Or have you ever noticed, there's a saying over here in those of us who are in Cameroon. There's a saying. I don't know if this is global. There's a saying that rule number one of programming is when it works, don't touch it,
Hmm.
because because anything might happen.
Yeah.
We've come across scenarios where students will develop at home, it works, but when they get to class during presentation, it stops working,
Ah,
and they attend the lecturer,
I've
and
never
they are
given a tutorial or anything where my code works. Like everything I did just now, it worked when I did it by myself, and now it just didn't work. So it's just really annoying whenever anyone else is looking. No, nothing works. That's just how it works. That's the rule of the coding.
and exactly that did in programming. Rule number one: when it works, don't touch. And
Mm,
so when it works, it's important to actually commit on GitHub, so
yeah,
that if you do any updates and it doesn't work,
true.
you have the assurance that you could recover from the last commit.
Yeah.
I remember there was a project I worked on and I did not use GitHub and my computer got bad.
Mm,
I It was a terrible experience. I had to code everything back from scratch, and that was really
so
a bad
horrible.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh yeah, I
um
also had it once that I just forgot to commit, and then you also cannot go back. So then I had to go back to like before, like two features before I actually had a working website. So yeah, don't forget to commit.
yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's hear